Welcome to Dear Diaspora, a podcast celebrating the African diaspora and the changemakers, innovators, and entrepreneurs working to make our world a better one to live in. I'm your host, Ndolwa Koa. Let's get started. So before I introduce the next guest, don't forget to leave a review, subscribe, and rate on Apple Podcasts. It makes a huge difference, and one key way that it does that is people are more likely to check out an episode or two if they see that there are ratings and if they see that people are actually listening to the content and enjoying the content. And one way to show that you enjoy the content is by leaving a review. So for everyone that's left a review, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And if you are listening on any other podcast listening platform, please make sure you follow the podcast so you're notified each Sunday when new episodes come out. And lastly, if you're listening on Spotify, you can actually share the podcast that you listen to on Instagram stories, just like you would a song. So if you're listening to Dear Diaspora on Spotify, you can share that in your Insta stories and I will repost. So of course, tag Dear Diaspora and I will repost, and really appreciate you spreading the word about the podcast. Happy Sunday, Dear Diaspora fam. Thank you so much for tuning into episode 26 of the show. I am so excited to share the amazing conversation I had with Justin Ikerionwu. He is the co-founder of By Design. So before I do that, a couple of announcements. So first, Dear Diaspora officially crossed the 2,000 download mark. And so I'm super excited about that and wanted to take a moment to thank you all for tuning in every week, sharing your favorite episodes with friends and family. Let us please continue to do that, sharing the stories of entrepreneurs and change makers across the African diaspora is something that I look forward to doing for a long time. And so I really appreciate your support and your encouragement and you just engaging with Dear Diaspora and getting the word out about the show. If you haven't checked out last week's episode yet, I highly encourage you to do so. I had such a great conversation with Orion Brown. She is the founder of the Black Travel Box. So if you visit blacktravelbox.com or theblacktravelbox.com, you can actually get free shipping on your first order if you are in the US or in Canada. And all you need to do is use the discount code DiasporaFam. So that's DIASPORAFAM, DiasporaFam, and you get free shipping. So check out the link in the show notes for that. My next guest is Justin Ikerionwu. He is a co-founder of By Design, a creative lifestyle brand promoting creativity and community. They showcase an authentic lifestyle for the creative in all of us, intentionally crafting editorial content and events that allow for real conversation and an appreciation for culture and style. So I was actually introduced to Justin by another guest, Paco Asando. So Paco is the founder of Mzizi. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, be sure to check it out. I think it was episode 6. And I actually got to meet Justin at one of By Design's Saturday market events late last year. So it was really cool to attend the event. It was just well put together, well curated, and I just really enjoyed the content that was shared, and I thought like he would make the perfect guest, and he really did. He dives into his Nigerian background, his upbringing here in the US. He grew up in Wichita, Kansas, so that was interesting to learn about. He also talks more about what inspired him to get started with By Design, how he is really working to build this creative lifestyle brand, how he has really rallied this team of people that believe in what he's doing. And he also talks more about how he balances being a creative entrepreneur with a full-time job. So he also works at AltCap, which is a local community development financial institution here in Kansas City. And so I learned so much from this conversation and I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for y'all to listen. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Justin Ikerionwu. Justin, thank you so much for being a guest on Dear Diaspora. I'm so excited to have you.
No problem. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you a bit more and more about your work with By Design and some of your other work. And so let's get started by just getting to know you a little bit more. So like, where are you from? Where did you grow up? And what's your experience been like living here in the U.S.?
So I'm from, originally my family were from Nigeria. My dad's side is Okwele, so Imo State. Here in the U.S., I was born in Wichita, Wichita, Kansas. So definitely from a really small town. Growing up, my experience here in the U.S., I'd say it was kind of, I don't know if it's unique or if it's pretty much similar to every other first generation American. You know what I mean? My family came over here, and my parents, it's not that they don't really know the customs of America, but they raise you in a Nigerian home trying to, I guess, balance between the two. So for me, that was a really big part of my childhood. Growing up in Wichita, it was always, you go to school and you're a little kid, you feel like you're being raised by all of your friends and your surroundings, like a product of your environment, but you're also growing up in that same other environment that you're also a product of at home, and kind of going between two different cultures.
And when would you say you kind of got a bit more aware of the fact that, like, oh, I'm Nigerian and that's different, and maybe there aren't too many other people with like a similar background, like in my class? Like, when did you start to kind of really notice that?
That probably, honestly, that hit me really early. I think the first African joke you get in elementary school, it probably hits you pretty quick, like, oh, something might be a little different. But I was lucky enough to grow up in Wichita, where there was a really strong Nigerian association. So a lot of my really close friends growing up were also just like me, first generation Nigerian Americans or other Africans in the city who were going through the same experiences at the same time. So I never really had that moment of, wow, something is different. I knew it was, but I think for me, it was trying to understand who I was in that reality. You know what I mean? I feel like it's trying to figure out, am I more of this or am I more of that? Is it okay to be totally who I am, or do I need to find ways to assimilate, to navigate comfortably in spaces where, when I'm not around my other Nigerian friends at school every day and it's just me, how do I make it through that? So it was I guess a mental back and forth. And I guess as I get older, I think back and I'm looking at it like, is that something that is unique to my experience, or is that just actually the experience of the first generation American, whether you're African or Southern American or whatever? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's super interesting. And I mean, like me, like I came here when I was 10,
Okay.
and I had like a good amount of other like Zambian friends, and it was always interesting because I always felt more myself around them. But then
Yeah.
when I went to school, it's like, you had to kind of code switch like a little
Hmm.
bit. So that was interesting, kind of like navigating that growing up. So I kind of get where you're coming from.
Yeah. It's like every day trying to continue to be a couple of people versus just
Yeah,
being able to be yourself, uh, being someone who is heavily immersed in culture every day, but the culture that you're heavily immersed in being, I guess, dual American and where your family's naturally from.
Yeah, absolutely. And so growing up, would you say your parents encouraged you and, sorry, do you have siblings?
I do. I have a few. I have three sisters and one brother.
Okay. So would you say your parents encouraged you guys to um, be creative and kind of open yourselves up to like different opportunities to like express yourselves? Or was it kind of more of like the traditional, like, you're going to be this, study
Yeah.
this
Be a doctor
subject?
or a lawyer.
Yeah. Like how was that for you guys growing up?
I was definitely told I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer. Even to this day, I'm not either, and they still don't know what I do. I feel like those are the only two professions they really took the time to fully understand. But no, they definitely, I mean, growing up for me, I was really into creativity. My grandfather actually was an author in Nigeria and England. So my mother grew up in that world of seeing where creativity had taken the family on her side. Uh, but it was always interesting to me growing up that it was never fully embraced. So when I grew up and I wanted to be I grew up wanting to be a columnist, honestly. Like I wanted to go to school for journalism, and I wanted to see where writing and these kind of passions would take me for diving deeper into my mind and trying to put it on paper. But my mom told me real quick, you're going to be hungry. So I had to let that one go.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it definitely. I wouldn't say that it was. I think that that's probably. I think that I'm sure that that's the common occurrence in many families growing up.
Yeah, and so I guess fast forward to you deciding to get started with by design.
Hmm.
Like obviously it's like it's like more of a side project for you. But were you like hesitant at all, or like what kind of pushed you to finally like get started with it?
I think that there wasn't hesitancy. It was a collective understanding that there is a lack of representation in the lane of creativity in the community that we live in. Um, there's a lack of comfortable space for creatives of all likes in the community that we live in, and having that collective understanding of that. Myself and my co-founders and brothers, Mufwa Lewis, co-founder and creative director of By Design, and Tony Henry, uh, co-founder and art director of By Design. We all had came together and we had a conversation about that, and we wanted to find a way to address it through our personal passions and creative means. And it had came together. I mean, we bounced around a few different ideas of maybe it could be a lookbook, maybe it could be something that could live solely on socials, maybe it could be just a digital product. But we realized as we went down that hole of discovery that it was probably best to bring all of our passions, talents, and bring it all together and put something like By Design in the magazine and the brand together.
That's so awesome. And so for those that aren't familiar with by design, like how would you describe it? Like do you have like I guess like an elevator pitch for by design?
Yeah, By Design is a lifestyle brand for creatives and entrepreneurs that is here to inspire and motivate them to explore their entrepreneurial desires and to be that creative that they want to be inside. Again, when we talk about those comfortable spaces, By Design is in place here. It's that brand here to say that it is okay to be who you are, and it is okay to go after those desires that are within you and to be a creative. And being a creative is not just a buzzword. It's a means and a way of life. It's a way that you can feed yourself. It's a way that you can be a business owner. It's a way of life for you that you should be comfortable being in your own skin doing. So that, in a nutshell, is the heart and the who of what By Design is.
Awesome. And so if people want to learn more, they would go to bydesign.com.
The website is www.bydesignmag.com. We're also on all socials, By Design Mag on IG and Twitter. If you want, definitely check us out. Today we released our next offering of By Design Radio, which is an opportunity to give creatives a platform to put out the music that inspires them through carefully crafted and curated playlists.
Oh, wow. And are they on like Spotify or?
Spotify and Apple Music.
That's so cool.
We just put one out today by one of our guys on the team, Quentin Burnett. It's called Dawn. Check it out on Apple Music and Spotify if you got the chance.
Awesome. I'm going to have to link to that in the show notes for sure. And so what would you say is one of the biggest lessons you've learned as you've worked on By Design?
I think definitely that intentionality is wildly important. That as you continue to build a brand, there's a certain responsibility that you take on to not only yourselves, but the community of people who are following you and have an understanding of who you are and what you're trying to do. I think for us, building a media platform and having a physical magazine, having the digital magazine, podcasts, and other products, for us, there's a lot of people who identify with the brand. And though I know in today's times, we all understand the fear of being pigeonholed as a Black brand and as the Black magazine or the Black platform. But trying to fight against that, you can also, I think, fight against the responsibility that you have to a community of people that you are creating a safe space for, or a comfortable space is probably a better term, to where they can go after their creative endeavors or their entrepreneurial desires the way that they want to go about it as their authentic selves, loving style and fashion, loving creativity and everything in between. So I think that that's definitely one of the biggest things. And as we move with intentionality, the product continues to be where we think it should be. And we continue to do the things that we know that we need to do to keep moving forward.
Oh, wow. Yeah, thank you. I think, being intentional is super important. And so how do you recruit, how did you get your team together? Because when I went to your Saturday market event, I really loved seeing how many people were there to, support you and to, just really be there and, help people get connected. And so how do you go about sharing your vision for By Design with other people and doing it well enough to kind of get them on board and be willing to just help out?
I think it definitely comes back to the intentionality that we've been moving with, and people kind of identifying with what we're doing and appreciating the message that we're trying to put out there and how authentic it is, and the fact that it is just, this is how we truly feel in our hearts, and the brand that we're putting out is something that they can, I think that really resonates well with them. And from there, for us, it's really about just giving opportunity to try to work with other people. We really understand like nothing that we're doing we're not the reason why it's important. So if people are feeling like they are seeing themselves or identify with what we're doing, we would love to work with those people. And our team, the committee that we put together, people just naturally reaching out or saying, hey, we would love to be a part and love to just help out. Without them, we wouldn't continue to be growing I think at the rate or in the pace that we are. So it's definitely a big shout out to everybody who had volunteered and the people in the committee, and a lot of those people from the committee who gave their time and their effort each week, day in and day out, to kind of carve and make sure that the overall vision for what we were doing was set out. We continue to work with them as the core team. So this time I just want to give my little shout outs to them. Taj, Nikita, Kayla, Gabby, Kiera, Jamie, Quentin, my co-founder Mufwa, who's an amazing leader. I just want to really a shout out to them, honestly.
That's so awesome. And also just like, I love all the graphic, like the graphic design and just like how everything you guys put together. So like you can tell a lot of like thought and work goes into it.
Yeah.
So that's something I always just take note of when you guys like post new things on like Instagram. I'm like, oh wow, like it just all just comes together so well. So you guys are definitely doing a good job with that.
Appreciate that. Shout out to Gabby, our marketing manager, because she took reins of the social and she ain't looked back since. She's been killing it.
That's so awesome. And so what are some of like your big goals for By Design? Like, what do you want to see, or what do you want to do, I guess, in the next few years?
I guess I kind of look at that from a couple different angles. On the business side of what we're doing, I think the best thing that we can do is to continue to be, I guess, moving with the intention that we have as far as trying to be profitable and make the right decisions as a business. But then on just the branding side, I think it's continuing to be about what we've been about, just the community and giving opportunity and investing back into those people who have invested into us and who have continued to grow with us. It's really dope being a part of like a grassroots type of movement. And it's really like, I feel like I'm just another person, a part of it, riding with everybody else. Like, it's changed the way that people are looking at the city and the space that they're in. Like you can be yourself, be your 100% authentic self, and still be professional, and still be someone who's trying to grow something amazing while looking dope doing it. So that's really, I think, just continue to be intentional as we add to it, like By Design Radio, like our friends at the podcast Street Wave, just different things, just keeping the pace that we've been on.
That's really cool. And so what would you say has like surprised you, kind of working on By Design? Like, did you go in it like with certain assumptions, thinking like, oh, this is how this works, and then like as you kind of worked through things, you like maybe discovered that, you know, maybe things don't work a certain way? Like, have there been any moments like that for you?
Oh, for sure. We don't have, I grew up wanting to do journalism, but I have zero journalistic background. So, and none of us did. So for us, it's always been about learning, stubbing our toes and walking it off and just keep going. But one thing I will say is that when the chance came for us to learn a lesson, the blessing in what we've been able to do is that we learn the lesson and we do it better the next time. When something comes up and we've taken a stumble, we realize that and we keep moving forward. and make sure not to make the same mistake twice if we can help it. It's been a really big learning curve, understanding like how to put together a magazine. We started out just doing digital, but we were able to take that digital and then learn how to build a relationship with a publisher, with a printer. What kind of paper do we need? How can we cut cost on a magazine? What's the best way to design the magazine? Like it's been a whole learning curve. And I think as we keep adding to it, we keep learning. But the good thing about learning is that you keep getting better. So
Absolutely.
I can say that it's like honestly, a daily routine.
Wow. And so could you share a bit more about some of the other work that you do here in Kansas City? And like after that, could you share how you balance like kind of managing multiple things?
Yeah. So I guess by day, I am a business development officer at a community development financial institution called AltCap. Community development financial institutions were put in place by Bill Clinton and his guys 25 years ago to help with the problem of access to capital to a lot of people in our communities. At that time, I say at that time, honestly, to this day, it's hard for people in our community to get the funding and financing that they need through intentional means then, and those intentional means have flowed out to now through redlining and other things I think that were more based in racism. But we've been able to do the work to intentionally kind of combat against some of those things through providing access to capital that doesn't look towards credit scores per se. It's more about credit history and debt to income ratio. So it's that in itself has been a blessing because I truly enjoy being able to provide opportunity to those who may not have been able to provide it to themselves in any other means. It's very fulfilling kind of work to do. And it's really nice being in the community. You meet a lot of really dope people. I think that's how we initially came across each other outside of our homie Paco. Mm-hmm. So it's really dope to be able to do that. And then as far as balancing it, that's honestly like a whole nother subject. It takes a lot of time and planning and scheduling and making sure that you're not overlooking anything. It's difficult at times, but it's been a lot easier since starting with AltCap. I started in July. Beforehand, I was working with 3M, and no one really, I'd never talked about any of my entrepreneurial desires at the time. Like I just worked I would leave work and make sure that I put 200% effort into work every day so that I could be at the very top of what I'm trying to do so that no one would ever have, I guess, the room to question what I was doing outside of work, even if they did find out. And I think that mentality kind of taking that into what I do now, where I'm in a world where I'm working with entrepreneurs and I'm in that entrepreneurial space on the daily. So it's weird to me every day. Like people don't see it as a negative. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So when you work corporate, it's like you're always constantly afraid of that they're going to see you trying to create on your own, and it's going to be a negative and something that's frowned upon, and they're not going to want to allow you to just do what you do. Whereas this has been the total opposite. My team at work is really dope. They appreciate the work that I do and how hard that I do work and how serious I take it. And they also appreciate the fact that what we're doing with By Design, we're trying to not only build a business, but it's a brand that's sole purpose is here to create comfortable spaces for those who may have not felt like they had one before. So it gives me motivation to keep working even harder.
Wow. That's so awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And then how do you, like, so do you ever just stop and not work? Or are you pretty much always just like working on stuff?
I feel like it's just life. Like it's
Right.
like a 24/7 type of thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like honestly, like I feel like that's cool because it's became just a part of who I am now, and it doesn't really bother me. I think it's forced me to realize that as much intention as you might put into the work that you're doing, you have to put that same intention into um, balancing between having the feeling like you have multiple jobs. And at one point, but I guess that really up until December, I was in school full time as well, trying to go after the MBA and then relationship. So you realize that you do have to put the same kind of intention into your personal calendar.
Absolutely. Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah. And I'm just now kind of learning how to balance like multiple like projects outside work because I've never really done anything like, on the side or anything creative or so. Yeah.
How's it been for you with the podcast and everything that you've been doing? And you're recently, I mean, you're new to the Kansas City area. How has it been for you in that change, and then also keeping what you're doing moving forward?
Yeah, I would say I feel like at this point I am starting to kind of find like a rhythm and like I'm developing a routine.
Yeah.
Because when I first got started like with this podcast, that was when I had like a couple months before like I had left Omaha and then officially launched the podcast. And then I was still like job hunting and stuff. So I had a lot of time to kind of dedicate towards like planning and working on the podcast. And I don't think I really thought through like, okay, how am I going to balance this once I have like a 9 to 5 type of schedule? And so, yeah, once I started working like full time, I was like, oh, okay, like I really need to get this together. And so now I'm trying my best to just do something every day, and not like wait until like Saturday because that gets like a bit overwhelming. So because all of my episodes like are out Sunday. And so now I'm like, okay, if I want to be able to still have a life, after work, and on the weekends.
It's a lofty goal.
Right. Yeah. Because, yeah, you're new to a city. You want to meet people. You want to, like, network and just explore. But then it's like, okay, but then I have this, like, outside of work, I have this thing I'm committed to. And so now I'm at a point where I am like, okay, let me just do something, like, every single day that's going to, like, kind of move this forward. And that's helping because I feel like now I'm not really feeling overwhelmed because I'm not like piling everything onto like just a day or like over the weekend. And so, yeah, it's not perfect, but it'll just get better. I don't think it will ever be perfect. But yeah, so trying to just embrace, living in a new city, embrace change, but then also like stay consistent, I think. And that's what a lot of people say about podcasts. It's like, you just have to be consistent. Like, especially if you have like an end goal for your, like whatever you're working on or whatever you're doing with it. It's like, some people don't realize their goals until like maybe they're 3 years in or something like that, And so, yeah, now I'm just trying my best to be consistent and, get better at like interviewing and editing and all those things. So, but thanks for asking.
No, no problem. It's interesting to hear. I think it's like in 2020, the life of a creative is one of, I think, a balancing act and a juggling act between a few different things that you're trying to do, and keeping the ideas that, though they might be amazing when they pop into your head, they can kind of steer you off track.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really just love like that you have a team behind By Design. And I would love to get to a point where I'm like working with other people, like similar minded people, like people who are, you know, are just interested in working on projects or, you know, anything that has to do with like improving the continent, or, you know, just engaging with people that are from the continent, like that sort of thing. So I think it would be really cool to have people to work on with it, because yeah, I feel like a solo thing is like, it is sustainable, but then I feel like I do better when I'm like collaborating with folks.
Exactly. One of the things that we talk about every day is the solopreneur, and the numbers on those who are successful versus those who build a team around it are drastically different. But I feel like it's also one of those things where it's hard to come across people who are like-minded with the same, not passion, but vision that you have of the kind of change that you would like to enact through the brand and the business that you're trying to create. But I feel like it also comes with time. Like, I feel like it's all about finding your village a lot more times than not. That was something that when we had interviewed Obura Anazi out in Dallas, that was a big thing that he kept on harping on. And it's very true. Like, once you find your village, you feel like you then are safe to go after the goals and the visions that you have for yourself, because you have people next to you to hold you up if you start to slip, or you have people who can specialize in certain areas that you might be weak in. And once you have that, you build a machine around what you're trying to do. There's too many people praying and working together for it to not at least hit a star if you're trying to aim at the moon. So I feel like it's something that'll come with time. I think that what you're trying, like what you're doing, is something that resonates with a lot of people, and
and I'm
it's just a matter of time.
Learn that and see that more now.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Oh wow! And I actually read that article on your website when you interviewed him.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and that was really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite my favorite interviews and sit downs with somebody, because it was like everything he was saying is really along the lines of the conversation we're having today. Like, we all have shared experiences being here in America and our family backgrounds. And I think that those experiences and how strict things might be as far as like where they want us to land, it also builds a certain kind of like go get it mentality. And I loved hearing that. That honestly motivated me a lot, just talking to him and playing back his story.
Yeah, I'm going to have to link to that, because that was really good. And like, I don't think I've flipped through a By Design magazine, but I will soon.
I just need to get you one. That's what it is.
But yeah, when I like clicked on the article and I saw that you were the writer, I was like, holy cow. I was like, that's like, yeah, you write really well.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then also just everything he had to share. And then I think at some point you said how old he was. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Isn't
mind
he
blowing.
like 22 or something?
Yeah. He's like 23, probably about to be 24. It's crazy. Like, the vision he has is wild. Like, I was like, bro, you're good.
Seriously, I was thinking like, oh, he's like, 27, like, he's got some experience and life lessons learned. And yeah, when I saw how old he was, I was like, holy cow, like this dude. That's impressive.
He's wise, like he's like 45 years old or something.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I'll have to link to that. And so how do we encourage more people to pursue creative endeavors, or like more or less traditional endeavors?
I think I feel like it's not it's regurgitating, but it's not. It's like it's very true. It's just by continuing to normalize the idea of being a creative entrepreneur and that it's okay. Creating comfortable spaces where there's room for networking amongst people in your community that share your experiences. Being around people who can knowledge share with you, resource share with you, bounce ideas off, truly collaborate in a way that's going to uplift what you're doing and them, help you with the understanding of structuring your business and what you're trying to do around creativity, having an understanding of what kind of financing options are there for you as a creative, and knowing that the picture of the struggling creative is not who you have to be. I think just continuing to do the work that we're all doing to open up doors and spaces for people out in the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was beautifully put. Awesome. And so have you traveled to Nigeria like ever?
Yeah, we went 2017 December. We're actually talking about going back this December, I believe. That's what my parents are saying. We'll see if it happens, but I definitely want to go. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I usually ask, like at the end, like what excites you about Africa's future? And yeah, I mean, if you want to answer that, that'd be great. Or if there's anything that you've like observed or any trends that you've noticed that you're like, oh, whoa, like this is really cool. And, maybe someday I'd like to be a part of that.
Oh, that's interesting because it's like, the culture of motorcycle riding throughout Nigeria and in the village from the village to the cities and back, and the way that transportation is done, just regular, like public. Here in America, we have like the very standardized idea of public transit, and there it's kind of like you need to get to and from. Like we have Uber out here, and I know in like Lagos in certain areas you can still use Uber, but I mean, if you're just riding around, you need to get somewhere. Somebody's gonna be like, "Hey, you trying to like, do you need a ride?" They'll take you to and from. So in my mind, I was like, this is honestly really interesting, and if somebody could put something together around like all of these motorcycle riders and the culture, the little subculture within that, I feel like that would be really dope. I don't know what that looks like. I just know that to me was one of the most fascinating things. Every time going back, it's like that's crazy. I rode my first one a couple years back when we went 2017, and it was rode it from Owerri back to Okwele. So it's like it was a long ride, and I was just like, it's honestly one of the dopest things I feel like I've ever done.
Wow,
it was
that's
really
so
cool.
Oh my god!
But yeah, that's probably it. That's definitely it.
Oh wow, I'm gonna have to look into that. I guess I haven't really thought about motorcycle culture. I mean, I've thought about like transportation and that sort of thing, but yeah, that'd be interesting to just learn more about.
Yeah, and I think it's something that's probably common in like in Asian countries as well. I think just overseas, like transit and getting around is totally different. And here, so it's like you might see motorcycles every so often, but that's like a way of life. So it's really cool to me. It's really interesting.
Totally. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Justin, for being on the show and just sharing, and being open to just answering all these questions and teaching us more about how we can be more creative and entrepreneurial and, just do things a little differently.
No problem. I appreciate you letting me be on and having the conversation with me.
Absolutely. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to By Design social media and their website, bydesignmag.com, and everything that we mentioned, a couple of the articles that we talked about towards the end of the interview, all of that can be found in the show notes as well. Thanks for listening to Dear Diaspora. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes. You can find us on Instagram at Dear Diaspora or visit our website at deardiasporashow.com. Thank you, and talk to you next week.